So, good afternoon. My name's Sean Mitchell. I am an instructor here with ATG Learning. Um, I've been in the field for about 15 years. Experience with IT infrastructure. I started out just like everyone else, from the ground up, IBM, doing technical support, laptop support. Moved my way up to server support. Moved my way up to different companies, various companies. Most recently, an MSP, managed service provider. And what a MSP is, for you guys who are not familiar with it, a lot of companies nowadays are hiring people. Instead of hiring people internal to work for the company, they hire what's called an MSP. And we are basically a IT infrastructure company that is contracted out to support IT needs for those businesses. So go ahead and mute everybody here. So with that type of company, it gives you a lot of exposure to a lot of different clientele. I have clientele in manufacturing, logistics, call center environments. So I've had a lot of exposure to a lot of different types of companies and infrastructures and how they actually implement different IT needs to service their clients based in their environment. So if you're looking to get into IT field, MSPs, a lot of companies nowadays are managed service providers, and you get a lot of exposure and you'll learn very quickly and get up to speed working for a managed service provider. But this CCNA certification definitely will help you get your foot in the door for working for an MSP or wherever you choose to work. I'm also certified. So a little bit about myself. I'm also certified in a lot of different certifications, ranging from my CCNA, Net Plus. I have my Certified Advanced Security Practitioner, Certified Ethical Hacker, Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, and several other certifications. So not only do I have the expertise in the field as far as like a hands-on experience working and implementing some of these things that we're going to be talking about, but I'm also certified in a lot of these areas that you guys are looking to get certified in. So what is the Cisco CCNA? And for all of you that joined looking for information about the CCNA, it's an associate level network specific certification offered by Cisco Systems, meaning that there are several other certifications beyond the CCNA, but this is basically the starting ground and where people would, particularly if you're looking to get into the networking field, you're going to be looking to get your CCNA or Net Plus, one of those two certifications, to assist with getting your foot in the door and becoming either a network engineer, IT support specialist, IT help desk manager, and several other roles that you could be qualified for with a CCNA cert. So taking this boot camp will help prepare you to get your foot in the door and get a lot of these roles. I did a search on Indeed.com, and they had about 8,000 jobs by just typing in CCNA, about 8,000 jobs that we're hiring. And we know right now, with what's going on, a pandemic, that a lot of people are out of work, and a lot of people think that, there's not a lot of jobs out there hiring, but there are. There are a lot of jobs hiring, and IT is one of those positions that you can work from remote anywhere, especially if you're a network engineer. I have a network engineer, senior network engineer on my team, and he actually moved to Blue Ridge. The company that he was working for was hosted in, Atlanta, Roswell area, and he moved 3 hours away, but they still kept him on full time. One, he can do 99.9% of his job remotely. That's the, benefit of becoming, a network engineer, is that you are highly sought after. Your skill set, not a lot of people have that skill set, that you can do your job remotely anywhere. And now with remote work booming, a lot of people, closing offices for the remainder of the year. I know some people are closing office for the remainder of the year. You're still able to be work, make a paycheck, and getting your IT certification can help you if you're trying to get into that career field. Some information about Cisco before we go over the course objectives that I have listed up here. We will talk about some of these course objectives, and a lot of things have changed with the new CCNA compared to the older CCNA. They just came out with a new CCNA 200-301 that was released February 24th, 2020. And now it is a one single exam that you take. Some of you guys that were trying to take the exam previous know that you could take it in a two-part exam, or you could take it in a one test exam, which was recommended for those who are just trying to renew their certification. You would just take a one certification exam. And if you're just getting into the field, it was easier to take it in two parts, right? Your CCENT, which is your entry-level network certification, and then you would have your CCNA certification. Now they combined it to one exam, and they did a lot of other changes that we'll get into shortly. The duration now is 120 minutes, and the questions previous were about 50 questions per exam. They've bumped that up to 100 plus questions per exam. So now they give you 2 hours, 100 plus questions for the new CCNA, and the passing score has bumped up as well. It's 825 out of 1,000 to pass your CCNA. So with that being said, you need to make sure that you are prepared when you go in to take the exam. If you do have to retake the exam, there is a 5-day waiting period in which you have to wait 5 days before you can retake the exam. But you can take the exam as many times as you want. There is not a limitation on how many times you can retake that exam. Cisco CCNA, with the pandemic going on, they have now offered the ability for you to take the exam at the comfort of your home, which is new. You usually have to go into a testing center, but now there's an option if you want. You can remotely take that test online. So, exam. A little bit about the exam and a little bit about why should you get your Cisco CCNA certification. Like I mentioned before, if you're looking to get your foot in the door, become a network engineer, network admin, any of these engineer, IT type roles, this is a common prerequisite to have on your resume. Having the certification on your resume will help you stick out from the crowd. It does cover a wide range of technology now, whereas before it was more Cisco-centric configurations on switches and routers. Now you're dealing with hardware, you're dealing with software, dealing with networking and security and automation. Provides you a wide range of knowledge that will help you succeed in information technology. The Cisco CCNA is a vendor-specific certification. So if you're looking to get into an organization that has a lot of Cisco-type switches and routers, this Cisco certification CCNA will help you do so. And if you're looking to get into a first job or a better job, maybe you're in IT already and you want to, migrate to move on up, the CCNA certification will help you open doors for better positions in the future. So some of the topics that may have changed, we're going to talk about the course objectives that have changed. The exam layout, as I will mention, is a multiple choice. It's fill in the blank, it's drag and drop, it's matching, and it's sims. Now, when I say sims, the prior exam had you do actual hands-on simulations where you would actually click on a switch, or you click on a router, and you have to do command CLI, command line interface commands to configure a switch, to configure a router, ACLs and VLANs. And it wanted to test you on your knowledge of actually going in and performing these configurations and testing these configurations on a CCNA test. With the new CCNA test, they've kind of removed that ability to go in and actually get hands-on exposure and perform these commands in a sim environment. They are still sims. They're called simlets. Well, they give you output of a particular switch or router and say, hey, looking at the output above, what needs to be done, what command needs to be done to configure or correct the issue that's stated above in a scenario, whatever scenario-based question they give you. So no longer do you actually have to be able to go onto a switch and router and type in the CLI and configure these devices. Now you're given a multiple choice with outputs to basically select the correct answer. Doesn't mean that you should not focus on doing labs as before you were doing, lab focused exercises to learn about CCNA test objectives. It's going to help you on the exam regardless, but you just don't have to do it hands-on any longer on the new exam. So it's something that, people are happy about. I would say some people are happy that they took the sims out, but still keep doing your labs. We have, Cisco Packet Tracer that Cisco offers for free. They also have GNS3, or you can get, real lab environments and set up at your house. Either way, it's same way to learn, but you got to get your hands on a lab environment in order to be successful in the CCNA. So some of the course objectives that they have added and some that remain on the new CCNA, you got to be able to explain the role and functions of a network components, routers, layer 2, layer 3 switches, next generation firewalls, intrusion prevention systems. All of these type of devices, with the network fundamentals, I would say the first domain that they've broken up this exam objectives into, be able to describe what these devices are used for, how they can help in an organization, describe, again, characteristics of network topology. Cisco design was one of the specialization certifications you could get prior to them removing it with the older CCNA exam. Now that you only have one CCNA exam, there's no specializations. There's not a CCNA security. There's not a CCNA design, right? There's just one CCNA. So they've combined all those specialties into one exam. So this described characteristic network topology. This is the design portion, specialization. How would you particularly design a network in an organization? 2-tier versus 3-tier versus a WAN. Right? Compare physical interfaces and cable types. We're going to be talking about Ethernet, right? UDP, unshielded twisted pair versus shielded twisted pair versus fiber connections, right? Being completely immune to EMI. When would you use one or the other? What's the attenuation of these? What's the speed of these? What is PoE, power over Ethernet? How does that work? Right? Compare TCP to UDP. You got to know the differences between the two. IP4 subnetting, which is a huge topic. Right? You have to know subnetting forward and backward, up and down. If you do not know subnetting, you probably will fail the exam. So IP4 subnetting is still a huge part of the CCNA test. Describe the need for private IP4 addressing. Configure and verify IP6. Notice it does state to configure. Doesn't mean that you're going to actually get on a device, but it means that you need to be aware of certain things that you would type in on a switch or router to configure a static IP6 address or dynamic IP6 address. What command given below would you type in to configure a static IP6 address? Select the multiple choice option. Describe wireless principles. This is theory. Right? What Wi-Fi channels are non-overlapping? Right, 1, 6, and 11 on a 2.4 gigahertz frequency versus a 5 gigahertz frequency, which has 23 channels, which are all non-overlapping. Describe what an SSID is, how it's used, how we can go into configuration via a wireless LAN controller. Why would we use a wireless LAN controller? Obviously, I don't want to go to several thousand access points in my organization, which would take very, very long time for an administrator to be able to perform tasks on multiple access points. So we can use a wireless LAN controller for central administration. I can go to one machine and make one configuration on that machine and push it out to all the other machines. Security is a big concern with CCNA now. And we got to talk about encryption and what type of encryption to use when we're protecting our wireless technology. Configure and verify VLANs. This was actually a sim on the older CCNA where you actually had to get on to a switch and configure one switch and the other switch to communicate via trunk port, put in the 802.1q protocol, and create VLANs for these two machines to be able to communicate to each other. Right? Same concept applies with the new CCNA, except you don't have to physically do it in an exam, but you're going to be given questions and you have to select the correct commands in order to accomplish the same goal. So a lot of times when you see these configurations, you need to be able to be sure on how to do that. Get in a lab simulated environment, Cisco Packet Tracer, which is what we use at ATG Learning to prep you for the actual exam, and perform some of these configurations. That's the only way to truly understand the concepts and apply these concepts to prepare you for the CCNA. So we will have a configure VLAN lab using Cisco Packet Tracer, right? And we will be able to configure access ports, right, and trunk ports, default VLANs, and check our connectivity, right? A lot of these commands and configurations that you do perform, you want to make sure and verify with different commands, your show commands, to verify that the changes you made are actually applied to that device. And you want to check to make sure after you configure that whatever you configured works. Configure, verify, inter switch connectivity, trunk ports, 802.1q, native VLAN. Configure Ether channel, right? We are going to have a lab in ATG Learning using Cisco Packet Tracer configuring Ether channel. An Ether channel basically is just redundancy between redundant links between switches, right? So we're going to be able to configure Ether channel using different modes. LACP is one of the modes that you can use, and there are several other modes within the Ether channel that we CCNA course that you need to be familiar with prior to taking your CCNA exam. Configure and verify layer 2 Cisco Discovery Protocol, right? This is a protocol that goes out and sends hello requests to find out its neighbors and update its routing tables. We're going to talk about that. Interpret components of routing. So there are a lot of routing concepts on the CCNA. We are going to get on a router in Cisco Packet Tracer. We're going to configure static versus dynamic routes. We're going to talk about different routing protocols. Some of the protocols, however, have been removed from the new CCNA. They want you to mainly focus on OSPF, Open Shortest Path First protocol, and they only want you to focus on the IP version 4. You don't have to know IP version 6 or OSPF version 3, which is IP6. But they still want you to still be familiar with some of the other routing protocols, not so to speak configuration, but we will talk about EIGRP, we'll talk about RIP, distance vectors versus link state vectors. You got to understand administrative distance, next hop, which is a distance vector, metrics and costs, how these determine which route to take, which route is the fastest based on metrics. Every one of these protocols, routing protocols, have different algorithms and different metrics that help it perform its routing. Configure and verify NAT, network address translation. So we'll talk about network address translation, which takes our private IP addresses that we have internally in our homes and translates it to a public IP address that we can get out to the internet. So we're actually going to have a lab where we configure network address translation in Cisco Packet Tracer. We have a lab that we configure network time protocol, NTP, port 123. We got another ports as well. Network time protocol is a protocol that allows us to synchronize our machines with time, right? And time is important because when we have authorization issues like Kerberos needs to give us out a timestamp ticket. And how can it give us out a timestamp ticket if it doesn't know what time it is? So NTP, network time protocol, is important for us to configure and for us to point all of our infrastructure to a central network time protocol server so that they all get the same time. So we'll configure that in Cisco Packet Tracer. DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol. This is another way to take out the man hours of statically assigning IP addresses to several thousand machines and let a server dynamically do it, right? Central server to hand out IP addresses. We're going to configure a DHCP server. We're going to see how that works. We're going to talk about excluding certain IP addresses that we've assigned to static machines, like print servers or domain controllers, these particular type of servers need to have a static IP address. Therefore, we can always get to those machines. They don't change. But our host machines are allowed to have different IP addresses. Configure SSH, secure shell. We want to have security in place for people to be able to access these switches and routers. We don't want to have our passwords passing through in plain text, where a man-in-the-middle attack could be performed and somebody could intercept that information and use it against us. So with SSH port 22, that allows us to securely verify that when we're sending information over the network, that it's encrypted. So we will have a lab where we configure SSH as well. So a lot of this stuff you guys will get hands-on at ATG Learning and Cisco Packet Tracer, configuring all of these things. We'll learn about it, and then we'll go to the lab and we'll configure it. One of the newer domains they've added, security fundamentals. This wasn't on the previous Cisco CCNA certification. Best way to sum up security fundamentals, if you have your Security Plus certification, that is security fundamentals in a nutshell. So they've added this on. It's about 20% of the testing score for the new CCNA. We're going to talk about threats, vulnerabilities, training and awareness, mitigating against different types of attacks, right? Viruses, using vulnerability scanners to scan for weaknesses or unpatched systems. And then all of these, security controls that we can put in place is not going to be enough to mitigate against threats. The best way is to train and make people aware that these threats are out, because it could get past a firewall, it could get past an antivirus, they could click on a link, and if they weren't trained and aware that clicking on a link can affect a system, infect the entire network, then what good is all the security controls we have in place? We have to train and make people aware that there are threats out there, and that simply clicking on a link can cause an entire organization to have a ransomware. Configuring port security, describing AAA, authentication, authorization, and accounting, right? Understanding what each of those consist of, how we can perform each of those in an organization. And if we have all those in an organization, then we have a secure environment. So a lot of things, 20% of the exam is security. And it's basically taken straight from Security Plus. We'll talk about that. One of the easier domains I think that they put on the new Cisco CCNA. And then automation is a completely new domain that they've put on there. 10% of the exam. Automation, explain how automation impacts networks. What is automation? Automation is basically, Cisco wants to get away from the end user or the network admin, us, being the ones that go onto all of these switches and routers and servers and configure things over and over and over again. What if we could have a software tool that could do the same thing and it could automate those tasks? Now you don't need 20 people to reconfigure 1,000 switches. You could just plug the switches in, push them to a central server, and that automated server will automatically configure those switches for however you configured it on that central administration controller. So we're going to talk about automation. We're going to explain how it's going to help streamline our infrastructure and our networking configurations. We're also going to talk about some tools, Puppet, Chef, Ansible. These are agents that allow us to perform automation. We're going to talk about the differences between those particular management tools. And we're going to be talking about a application called JSON encoding. It's kind of like JavaScript. If you took computer science courses in college and you had to perform some type of JavaScript coding, JSON is based on JavaScript. And you'll have to be able to look at JSON coding on the exam and determine, looking at the code, is this a valid code? What is missing? Stuff like that. Basically looking at the code and be able to interpret the code. Not necessarily with the automation do you have to configure anything within the automation, but you have to understand the concepts, understand when to use certain types of automated tools based on your infrastructures need, right? Agent tools or agentless tools like Ansible. Ansible is an agentless tool. You don't have to install that program on any device. Whereas Chef or Puppet, that's an agent-based tool. You have to actually install that tool on a device in order to manage that particular device. So we'll talk about the differences between some of these automation tools in Cisco CCNA, the new Cisco CCNA, and get you up to speed and familiar with some of the things that have changed. I won't say that that's a big part of the exam. Again, it's 10%. And what Cisco is really trying to do is trying to get people ready, get people adapted, get people knowledgeable about some of the new tools that are out there that can kind of streamline networking functionality. So our next live training is on June 1st, as you can see right here. I do want to paste a message in my chat window. Open up my chat here. Everyone. That's not the link I want. Give me 1 second, gang. Paste you guys some information about our company, how you guys can follow us, some links to some of our social media websites. Follow us on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, we have a lot of posts that come up daily that describe, when our next webinar is. If you're interested in any other certifications, you'll get, those notifications on our LinkedIn webpage. Our number is in the chat as well. If you're interested and wanting to contact us about signing up for a class, our number is 404-252-9611. And our website's www.atglearning.com. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you guys. And if I missed anything, if you guys have any questions regarding what you can expect or any concerns about the new CCNA, I'm going to unmute everyone. Go ahead and mute yourself if you don't want to say anything.
So you need to bring 16 different things with you so you can get a real ID. Well, you already have a real ID. So the question is, do I still have to bring all this stuff for Georgia?
Right.
Or since I already have a Florida real ID, will you accept that and issue me a Georgia real ID?
I think it just transfers.
All right. So somebody is obviously doing something else. If you have questions, please type it in the chat and I will unmute you, or I'll answer it in the chat. Anybody have any questions?
I got, is your classes just online, or you guys have them just on like the location?
That's a good question. So ATG Learning, we are both. We do whatever the client wants us to do. We can come to you, teach a class. We can do it remotely. You can come to us. We have a state-of-the-art testing center. You can come to us to test. We also have about 10 classrooms that we have available, projectors, whiteboards. We have computers in-house. All the tools you will need will be installed on the computer. So Cisco Packet Tracer for our lab environment would be installed. You guys could use that. Even if you did it remotely, I could walk you through installing that particular application on your computer. So we can get up to speed. We can do sessions via WebEx remote. You can get the same learning experience remote or coming to us. Great question.
Is there a pricing and everything? Is that like on your website?
So the pricing, that would probably be something you would have to contact our training center for. We have the email training@atglearning.com, or our phone number that you could call and you could inquire about the pricing.
Okay, thank you.
Great question.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Scott.
How much networking experience do you have to be able to understand the program?
All right, good question, Scott. So let me give you a scenario, Scott. My barber, he cut hair, and I'd come in, we'd be talking about stuff that happens in the barber shop, and he's like, hey man, I'm interested in getting IT. Could you help me out? This is what I want to do. I used to do it, but things happen, and now I'm cutting hair. I'm like, sure, if you really want to learn it, this is what you need to do. So I got him on a path, basically, of he knew nothing. He knew nothing about IT, right? Zero. And his first certification was Cisco CCNA.
Wow.
He put the time and effort into getting his Cisco CCNA, you know, boot camp using our training tools. We have great books. We use Cisco. We have the Cisco Wendell Odom official cert guide 1 and 2 that we use. Again, I told you we use Cisco Packet Tracer to actually implement some of these things. Even the whole 9 practice exams that we offer as well. He went and tested for his CCNA. He got his certification. Job offers started flowing in, and he got his first job. He's making 6 figures. Not No experience at all.
Nice. Can I just follow up with one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, I lost my train of thought just that fast. Go ahead. I'll come back in. I'm sorry.
All right, that's no problem. So yeah, I mean, what Scott is saying, and what a lot of people's concern are, that you guys are coming in with information is, what do I have to know prior to getting into the CCNA, and how much how much are you going to expect me to know? Uh, Me, I expect you to know nothing. I can teach anybody from the ground up. You don't have to be stressed about coming into the class uh, being expected to know anything. Uh, if you don't know it, that's fine. I'll work through it. I'll explain it in layman's terms until you understand it, and I'll work through it.
Okay, and you'll be the instructor for the course?
I am pretty much the instructor for the course. There's another instructor depending on the time frame. Evening classes, we have a different instructor. Probably normally do majority of the morning, afternoon courses.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
Can I ask you another one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you said 5 days before you can retake the exam if you don't pass it the first time. They also mentioned that you can retake the class if you needed to. How soon could you jump back in? Can you take the next following class if you needed to?
Yeah, so when you sign up with ATG, what we offer you guys is a year to retake the class for free anytime you want. No matter what class is being offered, you can jump in remotely and sit in on the class. That is a perk of signing up with ATG. You guys will get that option to retake the class if you need to. So if you don't get
Okay,
it the
and for
first time around, go ahead.
for the evening classes, they'll be at the location, the campus.
Evening classes, again, you can call our sales. Evening classes, we can offer those remote, or you guys can come on campus and take the class as well. Either or, it's up to you. Whatever is more convenient for you.
Okay.
Has anybody attempted their CCNA certification? It's online. So it sounds like everybody, it's the first time.
Um, so if a person wanted to get like some learning material for more to kind of get to expect, can they get that from you guys as well?
Yeah, we'll provide you guys with the books, right? We use the Wendell Oldham official cert guide. Wendell Oldham he's a CCIE. He's like 1641. You get a number behind your name when you take your CCIE. There's 65,000 now, so he's number 1,000. So he's an old school guy. He's gotten it a long time ago, and he's writing books now. So we use his official cert guide for the exam. We also provide you guys with practice exams and the hands-on Cisco Packet Tracer Lab. So these are tools that are going to help you succeed when you take your CCNA exam.
How long are your classes per day? I know that class I was looking at that I was supposed to take is about, it's 10 hours a day.
Yeah, so the classes range from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then the evening courses, I believe they're like on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are a little shorter classes from 7 to 10 for people's work schedules. So we
Okay.
try to be accommodating for your situation. Great question. I'll add that in my next slide. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
For the evening class, by coming into the location, will there be terminals set up for us to actually touch to do labs on a live machine?
Correct. Yeah, as I stated, we actually provide about 10 classrooms at our ATG Learning Center located here in Atlanta. And the computers you guys will have access to will have all the tools that you need to succeed. It'll have the labs set up on those particular terminals that you guys will have access to.
Okay.
And if you don't come to us, we still can provide that remotely on your personal machine as well. Or a virtual machine, we can give you access to a virtual machine that has access to those tools if you don't have a machine that's powerful enough for the application.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Stormwind as a training facility. They're an online training class. I guess with my past experience with them, they kind of just like projected out, and that was when they just basically told you, and they went through the class, through it, but it was like super hard to communicate. So the question is if like I would take online classes with you, how is is it almost like a one-on-one? I know you're going to be teaching more than one student, but like easy to ask a question. They're not just going to ignore you.
I understand where you're coming from, Stevens. I hate instructors like that just teach the class and expect you to know, and if you don't know, too bad, catch up. I'm not that type of instructor. I'll go step by step. My reviews have proven that people have come to me and they're like, "Hey, he's the best instructor I ever had." It's because I knew if I ever become a teacher, I don't want to be like the teachers I've had in the past where I got nothing out of the class. I didn't learn. So I want to make sure that you guys learn. If you don't understand something, I'll keep going over it. I don't care if somebody else in the class, I'm holding everyone else up. I want to make sure everyone gets it. I'm not going to leave anybody behind. So you get that guarantee with me. If you take a course here at ATG Learning, I can assure you that you will learn something. If you don't understand it, I can assure you that I'll do my best possible to re-explain it in 20 different ways until you get the content.
Thank you.
All right. That about wraps it up, gang. Again, I pasted some of our links in here. Follow us on LinkedIn. We have Instagram, we have Facebook. Call us with any information, any other questions, or if you're interested in taking our courses, we got some great deals going on right now. So, if you're curious, please give us a call. Thank you. You guys have a great day.
All right. Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Welcome.